Hello my friends, and welcome to this Lenten reflection of Wednesday of Holy Week. And indeed it is the last reflection that I will be doing this Lent. It's presented and produced by myself, Father Tom Casey of the Society of African Missions, otherwise known as the SMA, and from the SMA Media Centre in Dola. Having confidence in the Lord is clearly exemplified in the first reading from Isaiah chapter 50, verses 4 to 9a. Just listen to his words, and I quote, "He wakes me up in the morning, he wakes me up, opens my ears to listen as one ready to take orders. The Master, God, opened my ears, and I didn't go back to sleep, didn't pull the covers back over my head." End of quote. This is a person who is so close to the Lord that he is already being aware always, even as you wake up in the morning, of the presence of God. We may think that when praying that we have to be kneeling down and in the church. Here we are again with our own self-made rules, limiting God to the church as if we are apart from God in all the other chores of our days, like sleeping, eating, visiting and working, all the various goings and comings of our days. God is deeply there. We can walk with God, talk with Him, as with a friend. So please don't limit God with your own self-made rules. He is everywhere, and most especially deeply in our situations. Now the first reading takes on a dramatic turn after verse 4, and we listen. "I followed orders, stood there and took it while they beat me, held steady while they pulled out my beard, didn't dodge their insults, faced them as they spit in my face." Isaiah chapter 50, verse 4 to 9. Suddenly, in this reading of today, we see the suffering servant, which is Isaiah, but also, of course, we see the suffering Christ being described. Suffering is part of living, and especially the Christian life. In other words, the cross. The cross of suffering is where we find the Lord and are at one with Him. Like Jesus, we grip the cross of suffering with both hands, and we struggle under its weight. It cuts into our shoulders, and imagine Jesus' shoulders after the terrible beatings his body had endured. Again we read in Isaiah chapter 50, and I quote, "And the Master, God, stays right there and helps me, so I'm not disgraced. Therefore I set my face like flint, confident that I'll never regret this. My champion is right here. Let's take our stand together. Who dares bring suit against me? Let him try. Look, the Master, God, is right here. Who would dare call me guilty?" End of quote. That's Isaiah 50, chapter 50, verses 7, 8 and 9. Jesus never lost his connection with the Father, and he had, therefore, this extraordinary confidence in the presence of God right during all of his sufferings. In a sense, he is transported above his sufferings, but not avoiding the sufferings and pain. And today's Gospel, chapter 26, verses 14 to 25. We are back to the connivings of Judas in the first part of the Gospel today. Again, he is freely choosing to betray Jesus. He had misunderstood the role that Jesus always said was his, and that is to be of service and submission to the will of the Father. Judas seemed to be worldly minded and couldn't see beyond the physical, as most of the apostles felt the same. Today is known as Spy Wednesday, and we know why from the very first lines of today's Gospel, when we see Judas with the high priests, and he is getting his 30 pieces of silver. During this week, I would encourage you all to listen attentively with a prayer for guidance of the Holy Spirit to the readings and the rituals being done in your parish church. Ponder all the events that Christ is going through and ask yourself, what would I do when I am betrayed by a friend, or someone speaks ill of me and the whole world hears it? And what would I do if I knew the betrayer was eating with me and even from the same dish? Maybe some things like these are happening to you right now. And I ask you, how do you feel? Do you feel like forgetting all this pious stuff and taking revenge and getting that betrayer to suffer for the terrible deed he is doing to you? What would you do if your most trusted friend denied he ever knew you and left you in the hands of the destroyers and murderers? How would you feel? Please make this Easter real. Please make this Triduum coming up real and come alive to you by being in there with Christ's sufferings. Let's not put our generous God to the test, but rather be prepared always for any test that life throws at us. I also want to give thanks to the managers and producers of the following radio stations who have cooperated so well with us during this Lenten season. They are as follows: Yatsani Lusaka, Ichengelo Kitwe, Mosiotunya in Livingston, Lutanda in Kasama, Yangeni in Mansa, Kabangabanga in Solwezi, Liseli in Mungu, Radio Maria Chipata, Chikuni Radio in Monze, and Christian Nation FM Lusaka. It was a pleasure to have these 10 radio stations on board, and we at the SMA Media Centre in Dola really enjoyed producing this series of reflections for your listeners. Thanks to all concerned. We hope you and your listeners have benefited from these productions. We continue to pray that the coronavirus will be stopped soon and that we can experience our freedom once again. Any comments on these reflections are welcome. Please send to smamedia@gmail.com. That's all lowercase, and I will spell it out. SMAMEDIANDOL@gmail.com. All one word. Your comments would be greatly appreciated. This is Father Tom Casey, SMA of the SMA Media Centre in Dola, signing off now and wishing you a happy and joyful Triduum, and later the celebration of the resurrection of Christ from the dead.